In 2013, in a small village lost in the steppes of Kazakhstan, something strange began to happen. People would simply fall asleep in the middle of the day, in the middle of a conversation, while walking down the street. It wasn't normal tiredness, it was a deep, sudden, and involuntary sleep that could last for hours, sometimes days. When they woke up, many remembered nothing, while others reported vivid hallucinations, flying horses, creatures in the room, visions that felt more real than reality itself. The village had 680 inhabitants, and in a single year, more than 1/3 of them were affected. This is the story of Kalachi, and for years, nobody could explain what was happening. The first recorded case was in 2010, when a man fell asleep in the middle of the day and didn't wake up for more than 24 hours. At first, the residents thought it was an isolated incident, a personal health problem, maybe alcohol, maybe stress. But in 2013, the cases exploded, and in a single week in March, 14 people were affected at the same time. Children collapsed in the middle of class, adults fainted in line at the market. The most disturbing part was the clear geographic pattern. The cases clustered on certain streets, on certain days, and then disappeared for weeks, only to come back stronger than before. Local authorities didn't know what to do, doctors were called in, ran tests, and came back with no answers. The results were normal, people would fall asleep, wake up, and remember nothing. For 2 years, science tried to explain Kalachi, and it failed, repeatedly. The first theory was water poisoning, but samples were collected, analyzed, and revealed nothing out of the ordinary. Then they suspected the soil. The region had a complicated industrial history, nothing unusual for the former Soviet Union, but the analysis found no toxins either. They considered a contagious disease, perhaps an unknown virus, but the illness didn't spread through contact. People who came from outside the village didn't fall asleep, and residents who traveled recovered, only to be affected again when they returned. Encephalitis lethargica, a rare disease that causes extreme sleepiness, was considered and then ruled out. Mass psychosis, where fear itself would cause the symptoms, was also suggested, but it didn't explain the cases of very young children who didn't yet understand what was happening. The town kept falling asleep, and science kept coming up empty. While scientists debated, the residents of Kalachi lived in constant fear. Parents stopped letting their children walk to school alone, nobody left the house without telling someone where they were going, and if you didn't answer your phone, a neighbor would knock on your door to check if you were still conscious. Some residents began to leave the town, and property values collapsed. Nobody wanted to buy a house in a place where you could fall asleep at any moment without explanation. Journalists from around the world showed up, and TV cameras captured the testimonies of confused and frightened residents. One man reported falling asleep while driving a tractor and waking up in a field with no idea how he got there. An 8-year-old child fell asleep in the middle of recess and didn't wake up for 2 days. Kalachi became known around the world as the sleeping town, and nobody knew why. The answer came in 2015, after 2 years of investigation. Near the village of Kalachi, there was an abandoned uranium mine that had operated during the Soviet era and was shut down after the collapse of the USSR in 1991, and nobody had properly monitored it since then. What scientists discovered was this: the underground tunnels of the mine were being flooded by groundwater, and as the water rose, it pushed out the gases that had been trapped in the underground chambers. Among those gases were elevated concentrations of carbon monoxide and hydrocarbons. Carbon monoxide at moderate concentrations doesn't kill immediately, but it reduces the oxygen available to the brain, causing extreme drowsiness, confusion, hallucinations, and in severe cases, prolonged loss of consciousness. The pattern of the outbreaks now made sense. When weather conditions changed, especially on cold days with low atmospheric pressure, the gases rose through cracks in the ground with greater intensity and concentrated on certain streets at certain times. The town wasn't being cursed, it was being silently poisoned. With the cause identified, the solution seemed obvious: evacuate the town. The government of Kazakhstan offered new housing for all the inhabitants of Kalachi in a nearby city, and most accepted, but some, especially the elderly, refused to leave the place where they had lived their entire lives. For those who left, the symptoms disappeared completely, and not a single case of unexplained sleep was recorded outside of Kalachi. For the few who stayed, the cases continued. Today, Kalachi is almost a ghost town. The houses are empty, the streets are silent, and the abandoned mine is still there, submerged, quiet, and invisible. Kalachi is not a unique case in the world. There are dozens of cities and regions across the planet, many of them former Soviet industrial zones, where abandoned waste and facilities continue to cause invisible damage decades later. The lesson of Kalachi is twofold. First, the unknown is rarely supernatural. No matter how impossible the situation seemed to explain, there was a physical, real, and identifiable cause, and science took time, but it got there. Second, industrial legacy carries a cost that often only appears decades later, when those responsible are long gone, and the ones who pay that cost are always the smaller, more isolated communities with the least voice. Kalachi slept for years while the world wasn't paying attention, and by the time the world arrived, the damage was already done. Today, if you visit Kalachi, you'll find an almost empty village with closed houses and still streets. The mine is still there, beneath the earth, full of water and gases that nobody can see. But the story remains, as a reminder that the greatest mystery often isn't found in the unexplainable, it's found in what we choose to abandon without consequence. If this video surprised you, share it with someone who loves real stories that sound impossible, and subscribe for more stories like this one.